Hello and welcome. I'm Greg, and this is the Oz by Drone channel, but it's also another channel. What is it, Tech?
Yeah, TechManPat.
So we're two people who are both Australians, and we both like talking about tech stuff. I focus on drones, and Pat talks about all sorts of other things as well. And one thing that we had in common is NBN and discussing and talking about that. So before we do anything, I'll just, for my viewers, get Pat to introduce himself and a little bit about where his interest in talking about NBN came from.
Sure. No, thanks for having me, Greg. Really appreciate it. So look, I suppose I've been doing the YouTube channel for a while, but recently I've been talking about the NBN and trying to sort of, I guess, educate people. But I initially made a video about it because I got connected to the NBN, and I thought, oh, it'd be something interesting to talk about. I actually didn't expect a lot of people to really check it out. But they did, and it grew into a more ongoing thing on my channel. So I do continue talking about the NBN and especially what's actually going on. It's such a big topic and affects so many people now. Actually, I understand now it affects a lot more people than I thought it would. And I'm just sort of really interested in technology in general. And the only way to get to technology and the only way to learn about it is through the internet, which is what the NBN provides for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly looking at Australia at the moment, the whole use and the commoditization of the internet has changed a lot. I mean, the internet now is what a cable TV company used to be. So many more people are using YouTube, so many more people are using Stan or Netflix, and people, I think at NBN, have been caught a little bit on the back foot, not being ready to be such a dependable utility as they're bringing and rolling this out.
Oh, absolutely. Back in 2015, I think you could kind of look back and think when Microsoft, actually Bill Gates said, oh, you only need X amount of RAM for your computer. It's similar to what happened in 2015 with the NBN. They were not expecting Netflix to be such a huge thing or behemoth of data that's going to flow through Australia. So when that happened, the NBN was not ready. Neither was ADSL for that matter, but well, ADSL was a bit more stable, but the NBN took a big hit in regards to how much bandwidth, how much energy it took to really maintain the Netflix, films for everyone.
Yeah, I remember back, there was a demonstration home that I saw many, many years ago called the Cisco iHome. And this was a demonstration of what video on demand was going to be like and voice over IP. And they were premiering or previewing what later became Siri and Amazon Echo and all of these other things where, they were very visionary. So it's a shame that they didn't see it coming, because certainly some of the vendors and the manufacturers saw it coming. But let's jump into something else for a minute. So the NBN, as it's been rolled out, for those who are not tech geeks, there's a few different flavors of NBN. Let's just do a quick recap on that first of all. Okay, so the first one that everyone heard about was fiber to your home, and that's what was originally planned. Quick tech review of that from you.
I had fiber to the home at my last house. It was a newly built home far out into the suburbs, but because there was nothing there, they had to put in something, and obviously they went straight to fiber. It is a solution that is the future and is being used with a lot of countries that are, you would call them first world. And that solution is such a simple idea. It's just light through a cable that's made out of a plastic that's see-through, and it sends the data so quickly because light is very quick. And what that allows is the ability to send a lot of data without actually changing the cable if you ever want to upgrade in the future. So while you could have that cable sitting underground for a lot longer and spanning maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 years and still be able to use the same cable to transfer more and more information. It's a great solution, future-proofed, in fact.
Yeah, and it's interesting you talk about first world, third world countries and what have you. In Australia, we're going and not rolling out this solution to all of Australia that was originally planned, but in comparison, in other countries, in the Philippines, my wife's Filipino, and we've got an internet service over there that's faster and more reliable, and they've already got fiber to the home being rolled out over there. So it's a shame we're taking a step back. But let's talk about what's happened. So the internet rollout was due to happen, and we had the original plan. There was requirements from a political perspective, not a technical perspective, to cut back, to save costs and save money. But here's the question: is it going to save money in the long term? And I don't expect you to be the guru who knows everything there, but it just doesn't make sense to me. If you've got a one-time install of fiber, that's a one-time and it's done forever. But instead, HFC networks and copper networks, even if it is only the last mile to your front door, they cost money to maintain and to keep them running, which is certainly, in my view, going to exceed the cost of maintaining a fiber network going forward.
That's right. One of the things I realized is I thought I might be able to try and know everything about this topic and maybe become an expert. And what I realized is the more I dug into it, the more I realized I don't know. But one thing that I have come to realize over time, and it took a while, is that this new approach with this mixed technology approach is going to cost more in the long run. And exactly like you said, exactly the reasons for why that's going to happen. And the thing I don't understand is it was political. Nobody actually looked at the technology and thought, hey, if we do it this way, it's going to be a lot more problems down the line. It's just nobody thought that for some reason. It was just all about the money, the election, and I couldn't fathom why they did that. And now with this mixed technology approach, it's created more problems than it potentially wanted to solve. I understand that the aim was to save money. I completely understand that. Like, Australia's huge. The cables were already there. The problem is that it was a very short-sighted decision. It just didn't really get a lot of traction in regards to future-proofing.
Yeah, I want to share with you a theory of mine. I don't know, I can't remember if I've mentioned this to you in the couple of emails we've exchanged. I've got something, it's my pub test about internet. Now, if we're talking, if you've got fiber to your premises, everyone's happy. Yeah. But I want to talk for a minute about HFC because it's the type of broadband that I'm due to have coming into my house within a couple of days. In fact, I'm meant to be connected on Monday of this week as we record this 2 days away. So here's my question. If you imagine the internet is a pub and your bartender is the internet. So if you want to place an order to your bartender, and you're the only person in the pub, that's going to be nice and easy. But then you imagine that your pub has instead got 100 people in the pub and you want to talk to your bartender, your chance of getting heard is fairly remote. Now, this is the way I like to think of HFC because in comparison, you've got a fiber network, it's a switched network, you don't have to worry about talking in the same pub. Yep. Do you agree with me so far? Are we on the same page?
So far, I completely understand. I can imagine all the things about waiting in line to get your turn and so on. So, no, you're spot on.
Now, and then you imagine that you've got a DJ in the room as well, and the DJ is creating noise. So on the existing HFC network that we've already got that NBN has purchased from Telstra, we're already hearing about noise on those circuits. So your message going back to the exchange saying, I want to get a Netflix video, they don't sometimes get the message.
That's right. And the problem is Optus and Telstra, when they were rolling out HFC, they actually rushed it. They rushed it and they're kind of a little bit what NBN is doing now. They're rushing things, but they rushed it initially. And out of the 4 million homes that were connected or businesses, about only half of them actually have a serviceable line without what you've just mentioned, that noise. So it's concerning that a lot of people are going to think they're going to get connected to HFC. It's a very good solution, only when you get the lottery right, 50-50, I suppose.
Yeah, and certainly I'm on Telstra Big Pond cable, my existing service is cable, and it's been pretty ordinary. I've made a number of videos about that. It's been pretty ordinary. And, my concern is that instead of a small number of people in the pub on the Telstra service that I've got now, everyone in my region, in my locality, they're all going to be in the same pub. So it's going to be very long queues to go and get to the bartender. And like I said before, with that noise, it's going to be constantly all of these people wanting to get to the bartender, lots of noise. The good news is that the bartender, when he wants to speak to you and send you that Netflix stream, his communication, he's got a megaphone in his hand and he's able to speak very, very loudly. but it's your requests going up to the bartender, in this case, to the internet, and replying to and acknowledging those packets. That's the thing that just scares me.
What I'd like to add to that is part of the reason people don't notice a lot of issues with Netflix is, imagine that the bartender has a Netflix representative who's going to bring everything to you straight away. You don't have to wait at the bar. And most ISPs, to try and make the Netflix experience and Stan or whatever it might be a little bit easier for their customers and not actually use much bandwidth on their side, is to have local servers where they actually store some of the most popular videos or actually Netflix shows, movies, and so on locally at their ISP. That means that when you actually say, hey, I want to watch this, it actually brings it back locally. And this is what we call a cache server. And more of the big players like TPG, Vodafone, INET do this to make it a little bit easier. So when you test your NBN speed, Netflix is not the best way to see if you're going to get good speeds overall. Neither would be even Stan or maybe even YouTube. YouTube would be okay. I've done a few tests on that, but Netflix is the worst thing to test on.
Yeah. So for me, my challenge has always been upload speed. Obviously, as someone who does a lot of live streaming, getting good quality upload is always the challenge. And I think that's where the bartender analogy comes into play. There's unfortunately nothing I can do. Even with the multi-technology choice program, they've said that the closest fibre is going to get to my suburb is about 1.6 kilometres away, I think they said, and there's no plan to extend it. I'm also hearing messages that HFC is going to be around for a long time and there's no plan to get rid of it. Have you heard anything around that?
Look, I've heard that fiber to the node, which is another technology that I'm sure we're going to discuss in a moment, is not going to get upgraded for 4 years. And they're going to mainly work around the curb, fiber to the curb, which is another type. HFC is, again, being left out. They're probably going to try and fix the worst scenarios where the cable is completely unusable and then connect it up to fiber to the curb. Maybe actually to note, fiber to curb, in my opinion, is probably the best solution Australia should have gone for, apart from fiber. Like, you've got two evils. The lesser one is fiber to the curb. And what fiber to the curb is that there's a fiber connection to your street somewhere in your street. And then from then on, it's that copper cable, that last mile a little bit. And what happens then is that you'll get great speeds, great service, because that copper cable isn't running a long distance, and it'll actually service the whole street in a much better capacity. Unfortunately, that was sort of, in my opinion, was realized a little bit too late by NBN Co. And those on fiber to the node, which is to the node, copper long run, is a bit problematic. So HFC is just in this in-between spot where it costs a little bit more than fiber to the node, just shy of fiber to the curb to install, but the cable itself is also problematic. It's degraded over time. It's just this weird spot that we're all in. And you're right. Unfortunately, you can't get any upgrades for it. I've heard you can't.
Yeah, and the good thing is if you do have fiber to the curb compared to HFC, for example, you don't have the pub test effect, right? So you don't have this common broadcast domain. You've got your dedicated piece of copper going out to a communications pit outside your property, and from there on, it's back over the fiber network.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's kind of my experience. Now, this video is being recorded before my cut over to NBN, and I will make a follow-up video to explain what the experience was, but I want to share something with you. And I don't know in advance how much your networking background, what you've got in there, but I'll share with you something that I experienced and something that I saw. When I'm sending some information and uploading some information from me to someone else, there's this TCP protocol and it communicates back, and you've got acknowledgements going back and forward and all of that kind of thing.
For every packet.
Yeah. The thing that I've observed by doing packet captures is what's known as duplicate acknowledgements. So this is what happens when the far end got some packets out of order, or they missed some packets altogether, and they're doing what's called a TCP fast start to try and restart that stream of data from a certain point. And the challenge that I have with that is, well, I'm paying for a service that's going to be reliable, dependable, and when I'm doing upload and live streaming to YouTube, the packets are just not getting to the far end, and I'm getting these fast restarts happening.
Yep, the drop.
Yeah, have you done much investigation into that? And I know it's a kind of a deeper question than a lot of people talk about, but just curious.
Yeah, look, there's something I was reading about a little while back, and that's the two commander issue that I'm not sure if you've heard of it. When there's two commanders on opposite sides of a fortress, and both are enemies of the single fortress, and they're trying to attack this fortress. Now, if they each attack at the same time, they will succeed. If they attack individually at different times, they will fail. And one of the ideas is it's a computer problem, actually, and it's something that has come up in ordering food online. When you send an order, then you need to get a confirmation back that you've replaced the order. So what would happen to these two generals, these commanders? They'd send a messenger in between who would have to run past the fortress to get to the other side to let them know that we're going to attack at this time. Now, that commander has to then send back a confirmation to say, hey, I've confirmed that that's the time we're going to start. Now, imagine that at some point that connection doesn't come back, or that messenger doesn't make it through. What's going to happen is that you're not going to attack at the same time, and you're going to fail, which is what you've described there, where let's say I'm watching a video of a live stream and packets arrive, but then there's no confirmation that they arrived. So I send those packets again, and you get this weird glitch where it cuts off and goes back a little bit, and you get delayed. So that's where the delays happen. So, what I've understood about it is really it's the line, it's the cable that's problematic. And actually most of the time, and I know NBN has realized this, is that's actually at the home of the person, because they don't go in and check your home cabling. They don't. But
here's the thing, Pat. Here's the thing. I've had a look at this, and I've actually done these tests from the router going outbound to another IP address of another person who's on the same physical HFC node. So you're going from point to point, router to router. There's nothing else in between other than the internet provider. And I got the same results, the fast restarts, the lost TCP packets. Now, I'm only guessing what I think's happening here, but I think within the HFC network, they've got what they call bad code words that are happening. The traffic is getting lost and retransmitted at the HFC network layer. But the earlier packet is being sent out of sequence. So when the far end of that TCP connection gets that packet before it got the earlier one it was expecting, because there's this retransmission of the HFC protocol, but the underlying problem is just noise on the network and the failure of Telstra to maintain it over many years. And now NBN has bought this thing, $2 billion. And they've got this awful cost on their books to go and maintain it now. And going forward, I don't know where it's going to end.
Look, the HFC is a repurposed network, just like any other copper network. The one thing with it is that it's a much stronger cable in regards to distance. It can last over. It's shielded, but it's the cable itself is not good over time. It will degenerate, and that shielding is going to go away. If any point in the run between the home to the actual node or wherever the network ends, that cable is damaged, you're going to get issues. Now, obviously, part of that is actually electromagnetic frequencies that could get through this shielding and affect it. So we don't know, and we're probably never going to figure out. We could theorize on what it is, but coming back to what you said, the protocol, there could be ways around it. They could write extra code to confirm things more. It could slow down the speed, but it could make it more stable. So they do have different, what are they called, profiles, I believe, that could stabilize it, but it could cut your speeds in half sometimes. So there's a lot of things going on, and it comes back to the problem. We shouldn't have been using these cables in the first place. We should have used fiber.
I would like to see an outcome where NBN actually goes back to Telstra and says, hey, it's not working for us. Can I get a refund? Because $2 billion is a lot of money for us as taxpayers to spend on a network that I think is going to cause problems for the long term. But that's my opinion.
Yeah. No, I get you.
Okay, look, it's been fun chatting to you, and I think our interest in technology and the NBN, it'd be good to catch up again at some point in the future. Like I said, I've got my NBN service going in this Monday coming, and we'll hopefully post this video before then. But until then, it's been fun talking to you, and thank you for watching Oz by Drone, and please do also have a check out of TechManPat's channel. He's got lots of information on NBN. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Greg.